So this is our agenda today, and I am Patti Martin. I have been selling real estate in Richmond for 36 years this month, so a long time. And I have, because of that, a fairly extensive database of people that I have literally aged with. And so it's either that one of my clients says, gee, my mom or my dad needs to move somewhere. And we just did this about a month and a half ago. I had a client who had this lovely mother who'd been in her home for many, many years. She was 90 years old, and finally deciding that it was time to make a move to some independent living facility so that she could just have a bit more support. Or I have clients that, like another couple that just moved again about a month ago, who are, they have a place in Arizona and they go there for 6 months of the year. So they've got this great big house that sits empty, costs them a lot of money, and they have to have someone help take care of it. And so they made the decision to sell the house and to downsize to an apartment. So that happens a lot for me because of my aging database. And so that's one of the reasons that I think I'm a good resource for how and why people downsize. So I like to clarify right from the beginning, this is a hugely personal decision to downsize. Like, leaving your home is really tough, and I will be going kicking and screaming. My stepson said to me the other day, gee, the house is pretty big. Don't you think you better move? And I said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're so concerned about me, but mind your own business. Like, there's no way I'm moving. Like, that's not happening. So I believe that, well, these are my team. This is Jennifer, Zach, Andrea, and Adam. And when we talk about clients, as we do, I tell them, hey guys, just remember, people are only ready when they're ready. And we can't make that decision for them. And so it's interesting because I have clients that I meet years and years before they move. I think of one lady, I came to her house, and I came in the door and I just thought, there's no way that this lady is ready to move. Like, I know, I have a feeling, right? I mean, she was pretty much holding onto her kitchen table like this. So I thought, and I said, why am I here? Like, I need to understand this. Like, why am I here? And she said, oh, well, my kids told me it's time to move. And I said, oh, okay, well, where do they want you to move? And she said, oh, well, an apartment. They want me to move to an apartment. And I said, okay, and why? And she said, well, because I'm having trouble with some of the stuff in my house. I can't manage it anymore. I don't know what to do. And so I said, oh, okay, well, do they realize that when you move to a condominium, you're going to be paying a maintenance fee? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's anywhere from $400 to $600 a month you're going to be putting towards a maintenance fee on the condominium. And I said, that pays for some of the things that they want you to take care of. So I said, if you got yourself a cleaning lady, and you got yourself a gardener, and you got yourself somebody who did your windows and gutters, what would that mean? Would they be happier? And so she discussed it with her family, and in fact, I ran into her daughter in the shopping mall about 3 months later, and the daughter said, oh, thank you so much. My mom is so much happier, and she's got all those things because we don't have time to do them. Like, the kids did not have time to help her for all of that stuff. And so, she ended up being able to stay in her home. I think she called me 6 or 7 years later. And when she called, she was ready. She was ready, she was game, she got things done. She downsized the way that she needed to. But we do have to remember that it is a very, very personal decision. The other kind of hitch in this is sometimes one partner is ready and the other is not. So if you're married, it can be quite challenging. I had one couple, well, it happens a lot actually. One of the spouses, and it's usually the wife, and that's indicative of who's in the room today, like there are more women here than men. I said to the wife, it's a process, and everybody has to come along unless you want to have some drastic and traumatic event happen. So you need to give some time to your spouse. But I said to the spouse who didn't want to move, When people want to move, it's really just a matter of time. So you need to start preparing for that eventuality, unless you want to have a catastrophic event happen in your life. So I think people have to come together, and it just takes time. No matter how long it takes, it's going to happen at some point. You're going to have to look at downsizing. You're going to have to look at it. So in our workshop today, we're just going to talk about, this funny thing here. Can you tell I've never done PowerPoints? Reasons to downsize. No, I don't want that yet, do I? Sorry. Where's my agenda? Karen?
That's the next one. Reason to downsize.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in trouble. I told you I've never done this. Okay, so there are reasons. Financial considerations or health are probably the biggest ones, and that can be either positive or negative. So, but we're here to help if it does help you. So, the reasons to downsize. So it can be a health issue. It could be that you've got a bunch of bedrooms that are empty, because I hope for all of your sakes that if you had any children, they've left home by now. I get a lot of, I have a client yesterday, and I think that their son's like 26 or 27 still in the house, and that's normal now. That's not unusual. I mean, I left when I was like 18. I don't know about you guys, same story probably. That doesn't happen anymore. Kids are around for a lot longer. But when the house gets empty, it becomes a little bit of a different scenario. I tell people when I go into that scenario, take a look at what rooms you actually live in, because you'd be surprised at how much of your home that you probably don't use once you're in it by yourself or just two people. Maybe you're on your own due to a death or divorce. Maybe you're still just going to retire and you don't know how you're going to afford it. So you might be taking some money off the table. You're going to eliminate debt and free up capital. Maybe you want to help your kids buy a house. That's a very, very common thing. That happens a lot. So people will downsize to do that. It can free up money to do fun things. Maybe you've got a new hobby. For me, it's a bike, and those are really expensive. So, maybe that's what you're going to be doing. Doing new social activities. The other thing is, because when you actually downsize when you're downsizing and you have a smaller environment, it can actually be cozier, because sometimes I go in to very empty houses and that are not being used, and it can be, it's almost sad, right? Because there's just too much loneliness in the house, right? So it can create that more intimate environment. Maybe you want to travel. That's a really good reason to downsize and take some money off the table. So it can be a shift of accumulating possessions in your working years to enjoying everything that you've put in place. There's pros and cons to downsizing, for sure. Oh, I just want to say, there's a woman out of Calgary, an influencer, and all she does is post on Instagram pretty much every day, how to get rid of your stuff, and she doesn't want to call it downsizing, she calls it right-sizing. Which is good, right? It's a much more positive connotation. So let's look at the pros and cons of right-sizing. So maybe you have a mortgage payment still, or some debt that you need to eliminate. It can reduce the cost of your upkeep. So your taxes are probably going to go down if you go to a smaller place. Your utility bills, energy bills, and just the cost of upkeep. Like, it's really, even the gardener and all of that sort of stuff, if that's what you're doing now, can get quite expensive. So it helps. And it frees up money to invest or to help your child purchase. So sometimes it's that people are taking money and they're giving it to their financial advisors. That's a reason, so it's supplementing their income or they're buying other things. Cons. Oh, I like this slide and I really want you to remember this. Okay guys, it says, one day son, this all will be yours. And it's a storage locker jammed full of stuff that nobody wants. Try to donate and clear things out. Your family likely doesn't want it. And that is, since I've started in real estate all those many years ago, that is a very big shift in the world. The kids used to take the china and the antiques, and they used to care about the silver and the treasures of grandma. It doesn't happen anymore, right? It does not happen anymore. People are lucky if any child wants anything, and it's so disappointing to the clients to see. I'm in that privileged position. I know my children will not want anything I have because I see it all day long, and it's just a more expendable society. We have IKEA, people. I had one couple say to me, "Oh, can we just sell everything?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that's what we're doing." No, the dishes and everything, because we can just buy new. And I'm like, wow, it's such a different world.
Do you think that's just here in the Lower Mainland or BC? Do you think kids think that way, like in Europe?
I don't know about Europe, but I'm pretty connected with a lot of realtors in the U.S. and it's very similar.
Maybe it's the new world.
Maybe it's an expendable society.
Yeah.
But I will tell you guys that this is really just going to be a dumpster, and they're going to throw it in.
Yeah.
So, if you want to have control, and you want to choose where your stuff is going or who it's being donated to, do it now, because it will be gone, and no one will care at all. So that's why I talk about this. It's so important. There's a article in the Globe and Mail, and we printed a bunch of copies when you're finished if you'd like to take one. It's called the Great Junk Transfer, and it's about they did an expose on children that were left with the responsibility of taking their parents' homes apart. And one of the things that comes up is, let's say you're grieving the loss of a parent or grieving the loss of the independence of the parent. Either way, you're not grieving, you're dealing with this. And is that fair for anybody? So it's a really important thing to think about. I personally want to deal with my own stuff. That would be my choice. So the emotional side, these are the cons. This is a big one. That's where Jimmy's chart is when he grew, like sometimes I literally have people take a piece of the wall off with them. I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but they take it. And it's fine. I will confess, I'm not very sentimental. So that is a problem sometimes for me, but I try to be quiet because I know that there are much more sensitive people than I, and they should do what they want. But yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. So maybe it's tough to give up, the work shed or your sewing room, even though you're not doing it anymore. This is hard. These are things that were handed down to you. It's tough stuff. Maybe you're going to relocate to a new area, and then you might miss your neighborhood or your friends in the neighborhood or the people that you said hello to for 20 years. And then a smaller home might not be able to accommodate all your furniture or your treasures. To me, that's kind of a pro, but again, not very sentimental. But this is people have antiques, and suddenly what are they going to do with them? So that can be difficult. And then the other thing is, if you are the host of, maybe you're the host of family gatherings. This is a big thing, right? We just had a lady move who every Sunday for the last 30 years, her kids have come for dinner. And what is she going to do, right? So we found a condominium with an amenity room that she can book off, and she can still do it if she wants to take on all that work, right? Mm-hmm. And then we talked about this, differing opinions. This is a really tough situation because it happens more often than you could imagine, and yeah, it makes it difficult. So, market conditions can be a pro or a con. It depends. For sure, for the most part, it's a pro because most people are moving from something larger and more expensive to something less expensive. So that means you're taking money off the table. It can be argued that you want to move, a downsizer wants to move in a market like today where it's very busy and it's higher and there's not much inventory, as opposed to an upsizer, like a young couple wants to move in a different market. They want to move when there's lots of houses and lots to choose from. They'll make the financial side of it will be more beneficial, but a downsizer wants to move when the market's high. Even though they might have to buy high, they're still going to come out with a better financial result. And then also, depending on where you're going, like some people are like, okay, I'm leaving the suburbs and I'm going to go to Olympic Village and I'm going to have a view. Well, that might change the financial picture substantially, so it doesn't always work. So, how to get started, right? I mean, this is the number one problem. Like, where does one start, right? Because it's just so difficult to, like, it's just like, wow, you walk into a house and what do? When we list a house, when my group lists a house, I have a stager that goes into the house. Her name is Suzanne, and Suzanne has been instructed, we don't put things into houses. People think staging, oh, they're gonna bring stuff in. No, we are eliminating. That's all that we're doing. We use their furniture, we use their everything, except that we're taking out the clutter. And I went to a house yesterday and they had done what they were told. It's coming on the market next week. And I walked into their garage, because that's what I tell people, use your garage, use it, just park your cars outside. And I walked out to their garage and it was full of boxes. And I said, oh my gosh. And she said, I know, it's great. We're ready to move because we bought this place. They bought a place on the island. She said, this is half of our stuff. Like, we've already done half of the move just by decluttering. So it can happen. The advantage of someone telling you what to do is that there's a roadmap, right, that you follow. But if you're just starting and you're just gonna do it yourself, it's better to start really small. So, like a snowball, right? Pick a closet. A linen closet's a great idea, right? Start there. A bathroom drawer or a bathroom cupboard. A cupboard in the kitchen where there's nothing that you ever use. Take a look at it, right? And when you're in those cupboards and when you're in those closets, ask yourself these 3 questions. First, do I realistically use this item? Will I use it? Do I love this item? Is it my favorite? Because maybe we have 10 vases, right? So ask yourself as you're looking at them, which one do I love? Which one do I really want to keep? And then the third question is, would I buy this item again? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, then you need to seriously consider whether or not you're going to keep it. So working in small spaces really helps. It stops you from burning out, right? And I tell people, like, look, block the time. So, make it every Tuesday afternoon is going to be my downsizing day, or every day for 20 minutes, and set a timer so that you don't burn yourself out with it, because it doesn't have to be done immediately for anybody that's just considering starting the process, and it gives you a chance to really go through things. I hate storage lockers. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Only pay for storage locker if necessary. Because to me, the only time they're useful is if we've moved someone in a hurry, someone's health in a hurry, they've had to move out, and the kids have to deal with it, they don't know what to do, okay, fine. And you can take a year to do this. But if you're just going to start looking at your own stuff, don't put it there, because you will never go back. And you're gonna pay all day long for it. And I mean, you see those shows, they sell those lockers for treasure, right? I hate them. So don't go there unless you need to. And then the other thing is that sometimes it is a really good idea. I will tell you, plot out what you're going to use where. I can remember a house where the people had me over and they said, oh yeah, we're going to work on this. We're going to do, yeah, we're great. We even had Suzanne in, the whole story. And then they showed me their crawl space. And I'm telling you, you could have had another family living in that crawl space. It was unbelievable. So I said, wow, you guys, oh no, we're gonna deal with it. So after the property, they moved. You know, sometimes I go over, right? You know, check in, see how things are going. And I come to their apartment and I literally did one of these in the hallway for the boxes that were there. So they had to deal with it afterwards. And they did eventually, but you know, much better to get it done before you go. The last thing is hire a professional. So there are companies that will come and do everything. They'll do everything for you, the entire move. So we had this older couple, lovely couple, who has just moved into a condominium in Apple Green. And you know, they were fairly elderly. They did not want to go to independent living. They want to stay in their own home still, and that's great. But moving was a challenge because they had some health issues. And so they hired an independent group to come in. And on moving day, our group, one of us takes lunch on moving day. So I show up on moving day with the lunch, and the place looks amazing. The house is clean, everything's in boxes, the stuff is being moved out, but the owners aren't anywhere to be seen. And I'm like, well, where are these people? And the girl says, oh yeah, they'll be right back. And about 10 minutes later, they come sauntering down the road, not a care in the world. They are not stressed, they are not worried, because everything's being done for them. And you know, it costs, but generally it's worth it if the headache is gone. So, the last thing is, do I buy or sell first? And this is only if you're actually going to sell. You might just be here because you want to figure out how to start getting ready, and that's fine. But if you are thinking about selling, it always is more beneficial to sell first, just because you'll know how much money you have. And if you buy first, there's the financial complication of, I don't know what I have, and then I might put myself at risk if the market changes at all, right? So we want to be careful that you're getting good advice about that. Maybe you're going to rent. So maybe you're going to go to the island and you're going to say, hey, I better check out this neighborhood. Great idea. Just make sure that the market doesn't fluctuate in the time that you do that. That's the only thing that you want to be careful of. And then the last is this idea of independent living, which we have moved dozens and dozens of people into Wisteria, the Maples, Courtyard Gardens. That happens probably almost every month for me. Somebody's moving into that kind of facility. And, you know, with varying degrees of happiness, it's an adjustment. So I think of one lady who was, you know, never going to leave her apartment again. And the other that was the, you know, the social coordinator after a month. So it just depends on who you are. What I have noticed is when I go back to see people after they've moved into something like that, if they've been on their own for a while, they generally look healthier because they're getting regular meals. There's services provided that help them, and if they want company, it's available. So I do think that that's a lovely opportunity for some people. So, conclusion. Downsizing can provide the solution to a variety of life issues. It can be the launching pad for an exciting new phase in your life, or a practical solution to an unplanned event. And whatever the motivation brings you to the dialogue, we can help you consider the options and what might work best for you in your circumstances. So, do I have any questions? See, I promised. Was I right?